Hello friends, and welcome back to Scaling Stories. Today, I've got some more highly upvoted posts from Best of Redditor updates for you all. Like always, I'll be reading you the posts and giving you my opinions, and I'll also be working on building up my forever world at the same time, so I hope you enjoy. Also, I'm currently only in Spotify's creator program, so watching on there would help me out a ton. Thank you so much for your support. Today's first story comes from the Relationship Advice subreddit. It was posted by TRAawaybadbf on November 18th, 2024, and was titled, "My best friend tried to sabotage my marriage and I don't know why." So I, 29 female, met my best friend, Sarah, 29 female, and husband, 31 male, when I was 11. I had just moved to a new country with my family, and my now sister-in-law introduced me to Sarah. Now that we're adults, we share some friends, but we each have different groups to do different things. So, usually, I'm working in the office from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., and I have a 30-minute break that I usually take to have my second breakfast, and sometimes I go to my husband's office. It's a 5-minute walk, or a cafe near my job. Sometimes I have to work out of my office or go to another city. Every now and then, I mention to Sarah if I have to travel for work during the week in casual conversations. Last week, I had to travel for work on Wednesday, but Tuesday night, there was a red alert about the weather the next day, so my work thing was canceled, and I stayed home with my 2-year-old. My husband went out at 6 a.m. to make sure his business was closed and put up some flood protection, and by 7:30 a.m., he was back at home making breakfast. It didn't start raining until 1 p.m. At 3 p.m., Sarah sent a message asking if I was at home already because it was flooding where I was traveling, and I just texted back, "Home safe." Blah. We literally didn't go out until Friday. Saturday, Sarah and I go to the same gym class. She told me we needed to talk in private, so we went to my car, and she told me, basically, "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman, and they were making out, and your kid was in the car." I was frozen for a bit, but then I remembered that I was working from home with my husband and my baby for 2 days. I realized she was lying, but I didn't understand anything. I asked 3 times if she was sure it was this week's Wednesday, and she confirmed it 3 times. I asked her about the time, and she said about 11 a.m. I asked if it was during the red alert, and she said yes. I asked her if she was 100% sure, and she launched into a whole description of my husband making out with a gorgeous Barbie lookalike blonde girl in his car in front of our kid near his office during the red alert, so he was putting my son at risk and cheating in front of him. I told her my work thing was suspended because of the red alert, and we were both home during the whole time it was activated. She tried to say she got confused with the days, but she confirmed it 3 times. I told her to leave, and she left running. I went home and did the whole betrayed spouse house search. There was no hidden phone. I have all of the passwords to every device in this house. Not lack of trust, it's because I manage part of his business and he's bad with passwords. I even looked for hidden emails, and the only thing he was hiding was his paranormal podcast he listens to sometimes. That night, I told my husband what was going on, and he denied ever cheating and, even worse, disrespecting his own son in that way. I believe him 100%. There wasn't a change in his behavior or routine. He gave up his phone right away, and I told him I already checked everything in our house, and he told me to check his car then. We decided to call Sarah together. She picked up the 3rd call, and she was crying. I told her to just tell me why she lied. She swore she wasn't lying, but told me she got confused with Monday. I told her Monday, our son was in daycare, and we had breakfast during my break. So at what time did my husband go to take our son out of daycare, go to pick up this girl to make out in front of my baby, and then go back to the daycare for me to pick him up and then have breakfast with me? She cried more and told me she didn't know, so my husband told her to cut the crap if she had at least a bit of decency and tell us why she was lying. She said she was sorry and hung up, and then had the audacity to block us. I told the friends we had in common with her, and everyone is mad and can't explain what happened to her. She is not picking up the phone, but sent a message back saying she was sick. Some of them asked her why she was lying, and she blocked them. Someone even called her mom, and she is just as shocked. Nobody understands what's going on. I thought maybe it was a crush, but my husband never liked her that much, so he didn't pay attention to her. She isn't even added to his socials because he never liked her when Sarah was his sister's friend or when she became my friend too. They don't interact unless it is necessary, so to say she got a crush so big that she thought it was worth it to try to break a family? I do know that sometimes she gossips a little too much, or sometimes she talks about things she shouldn't, but I never thought it would develop into something this big. I had this girl at my side for really hard moments. I had her back when she needed me. She was one of the first persons I told about my wedding and pregnancy. I loved this girl since we were little. I just don't understand, and she is not talking to anyone. ScalingStories Corner. Okay, so wow. Okay, I can only think of a few things in this situation. One is that maybe Sarah is going through some sort of mental problem. Like she's crazy and hallucinating and imagining stuff. That would be really unfortunate and crazy to happen to her, and that's why all her details are all over the place and seems like she's making everything up. The second thing that could be happening is that Sarah is genuinely trying to sabotage OP's marriage and life. And when I try to think of the reasons why someone might do this, I can only think that maybe she's jealous of OP's life. This is assuming that Sarah doesn't have a crush on OP's husband, because that's what OP told us, and I'm going to take her word for that. So to me, the only possibility for such a relationship and life-ruining accusation like this, if it's not a mental health crisis, is that Sarah is super envious of OP's life and wants OP's life to be worse. Since before this incident, OP and Sarah were super best friends, and I think if I was OP, I would want to somehow talk to her to figure out what is going on. Maybe Sarah's mom could get us all together for a talk to make sure she's not having some sort of episode. And if it turns out that she was just acting malicious towards me and there's nothing wrong with her mentally, then I think it's an instant cutoff, no contact, and move on with my life. Now, here are some of the top/relevant comments from the original post. Commenter 1 says, "Perhaps the feeling regarding your husband is mutual, and she was trying to drive him away. Is she single? Did she go through a breakup or something along those lines recently? Sometimes, when that happens to people, they try to make their friends single so they don't feel bad/jealous. It's awful, but it happens. You need to cut this person from your life." OP says, "It's not like they're rude to each other or anything, but she is aware that my husband has a better connection with other friends of mine, but she is still invited to our house or every group kind of thing, just like any other friend. Also, she is not the relationship kind of girl, doesn't have a history of bad breakups, and she is out of our lives, but she left a lot of confusion behind her." Commenter 2 says, "What is Sarah's living situation? You don't tell us if she is married, lives with a partner, went through a breakup, has kids, what she does for work, etc. How often do you hang out? I'm assuming she is single, as you called her mom and not her partner, but telling us a little more about her life might shed some light on why she's acting so bad crap crazy. Can you think back whether she's ever said anything negative about your husband before? Have you spoken to your sister-in-law about this? What does she think? Maybe the two of you should pay Sarah a visit. Perhaps going without your husband might make her more willing to tell you why she's making crap up about him. And maybe she had a brain tumor? This is so strange. I honestly don't know without hearing a bit more about her life." OP says, "She's single and never really liked being in relationships, so no bad breakups. She works from home in her field and was happy with it. Our group of friends are her longest and, I would say, main friendships, but she also has a healthy social life outside of us, you know? If she wants to make plans, she has people to do them with. Also, my husband and Sarah are not, rude to each other, but Sarah knows that she isn't his favorite friend of mine, but she never said something bad about him, at least to my face. She was still invited to every cookout, birthday, or stuff like that. She was welcome to our house, and we treated her like any other guest. We usually see each other once a week outside the gym, sometimes with other friends, sometimes with my kid, and sometimes alone. We don't have a set schedule, but we make time. I admit my sister-in-law went crazy on her in messages, but she is currently living abroad, so that bridge, I would say, is burned. Some friends are suggesting mental health issues because she never did anything like this, but she is still not talking." Commenter 3 says, "What do you mean that your sister-in-law went crazy on her?" OP says, she left voice notes and messages screaming and insulting her, which I find fair, and told her she was cut off the group and was telling everyone what she did. And she messaged almost all of Sarah's friends on Instagram about what she did and to be careful if they're in relationships, in case she tries to ruin another relationship. Commenter 4 says, is Sarah having a mental breakdown? It would be very strange if she was previously a good friend and then suddenly starts sabotaging your relationship. Not you, but someone else should take her for a mental health check. OP says, some of my friends are suggesting mental health because she isn't known for lying or liking drama, but it's not like we can take her to a hospital and she isn't talking to anyone. Update 6 days later. So, I got the truth finally, and it was far more stupid than I thought. So, Sarah's mom told me to come to her house for a conversation with Sarah and to bring a friend as a buffer. I went for closure. She apologized a lot, but I literally had to interrogate her to give me reasons, and I finally got them. She lied because she was mad that I missed our girls' trip, 5-girl group, for the second time. Once because I had a 2-month-old baby, and this year because I had to work during August, and it was the only month everyone else was free. I traded my vacations for December extra days they owed me, so I will be out of the country from December to January 10th and miss her birthday in December and other winter activities in January. Her reasoning was that if I thought my husband cheated, she was sure I would leave, but he wouldn't let me take my son abroad for too long without him, so I would be forced to stay but would be able to travel during my husband's custody time. She was just being mean and selfish because of a trip that I missed and a birthday. She thought it would be okay to break my son's family so she could have all her friends for attention. I told her to never contact me again and to avoid me everywhere. My friends are aware to not invite me to things if she is going to be there, but everyone is mad at her, so she's the one not being invited. This is painful as hell. I would be able to forgive and work on things if she was having mental health issues or drug problems. I actually sent her mother recommendations for mental health professionals during the week. Almost 20 years of friendship down the drain. I treat my closest friends like family because, apart from my husband's family, I only have my sister in this country. I make time for them, pay attention, and help them when I can. I thought she wanted the best for me as much as I wanted the best for her. But lesson learned, I guess. ScalingStories Corner. Psycho! So I said psycho like that after OP explained what her friend's plan was, but I try my best to not have those takes in the story readings so that the story can just get read like from start to finish kind of normally. But I couldn't help myself on that one earlier. It was just like, oh my god, that was such a crazy like mental gymnastics her friend was trying to do just to get all her friends together. So no like actual mental illness going on, but I think a super mega case of main character syndrome where the whole world needs to revolve around Sarah. And that is actually insane that she wanted to destroy OP's life just to hang out with her more. Like, I'm just speechless. So before I was talking about like what I would do if I was OP, but even if I wasn't OP, like if I was a mutual friend who heard about what Sarah did and why she did it, I'm pretty sure that would also be the last time I would have contact with Sarah. And yeah, she kind of deserves all the no contacts that are coming her way after the crap she tried to pull. Okay, friends, so that concludes our first story of the day. Next up, we have a story from the relationships subreddit. It was posted by Big Platypus on July 13th, 2019, and was titled, My 24 female boyfriend, 26 male of 6 months told me that I need to unlove the men from my past before I can love him. I've been dating Mark for 6 months and have known him for around 8 months. I just moved to my current city 9 months ago for grad school, and Mark was one of the first people that I became close with. He's been really great and helped me become comfortable in a new city. Recently, Mark and I said I love you for the first time. Everything was fine for a while until he told me that I was the first person he's ever said that to. I was a little surprised, but not in a bad way, and didn't really make a big deal of it. He asked me how many other guys I've said it to. I told him 1. That seemed to bother him. Mark knows that I'm still occasionally in contact with one of my exes, Eli, and it has never been an issue for Mark. However, after our conversation, Mark asked me if Eli was the ex that I had said I love you to. I was honest and said yes. Background: Eli and I grew up together and dated from when we were 15 to 22. We broke up when I got accepted to grad school and found out I'd have to move across the country because we realized that we had grown into different people and weren't going to spend our lives together. The breakup was extremely amicable, and we remained close friends while I was in town before I moved, and we talk maybe once a week currently, just basic "how are you" texts. Mark asked me how I feel about Eli now. I said that while I don't love him romantically anymore, he was a huge part of my life since childhood, and I still have very positive feelings about him and consider him an important person. Mark kept pressing, asking me if I still love Eli in any sense. I said that no, I am not in love with him, but Mark almost didn't seem to believe me. He kept prodding me until I finally said that I will probably always love Eli as a person and respect him a lot, but that I have no romantic connection to him and fully accept that we are different people now. Mark was upset by this. The next day, Mark told me that he doesn't think I can truly love him unless I learn to unlove the men from my past. I asked what he meant, and again clarified that I am not in love with Eli, and he said that I should retain no love in any form for any other guys I've been with. I was, quite honestly, shocked and tried to explain to him that me loving someone as a friend is totally and completely different from being romantically in love with someone, and that he is the only one I have those feelings for. He insisted that I need to change my feelings about Eli. He almost seemed mad that I'm not resentful over the breakup. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Is this totally weird and out of line, or am I overreacting? Just to be clear, Eli and I talk very sparingly. Probably 10 texts a week, if that, just to check in. I have no feelings for him anymore. But he was a huge part of my life for many, many years, and I don't think it's unreasonable for me to have generally positive feelings for him. Is Mark out of line, or am I? ScalingStories Corner. Nah. I feel like that is totally out of line from Mark to say to OP. First off, OP is 24, so of course she's probably going to have had a relationship before Mark and told someone else the words "I love you." And that's not some crazy statistical anomaly happening. That's just life. And the fact that it's Mark's first time saying "I love you" to someone else at 26 is great. And I mean that honestly, that's really great. Like, it's good that he's able to find someone where he felt like he could say those words. But that doesn't mean OP's "I love you" is worth any less than his when she says it. And also, OP and Eli's relationship started when they were 15. That's like high school, I think. I'm pretty sure it's high school or middle school. High school or middle school. And people don't really no, wait, it's high school for sure. People don't really know what they want at high school. And people change as they grow older. And I certainly didn't know what I liked and wanted when I was in high school. And OP even says herself that that's exactly what happened. She and Eli got older and realized they were growing up into different people and that they weren't a match for each other. So what's so hard to understand about that? And I don't understand how you're supposed to unlove someone in those circumstances. And what does unlove even mean? Like, does he want OP to start DMing and tagging Eli on social media and attacking him and everyone related to him so he hates OP or something? So yeah, I think Mark is being unreasonable here. Kind of a red flag, a little bit controlling. And I will say that I can see how like 10 texts a week can seem a little bit excessive towards an ex. And I'm in no way defending Mark here. I'm just saying 10 texts a week, if you put it down to numbers without knowing like the specific details, that could possibly be like a text a day. So you could possibly say that like OP is technically texting her ex every single day. And some people would have a problem with that in a relationship. But OP said she and Eli only text once a week. And I can totally see texting someone maybe 10 times in a single conversation and leave it at that. And it's completely fine, I think. Now, here are some of the top/relevant comments from the original post. Commenter 1 says, I personally don't think it's really appropriate to be in contact with your ex as frequently as you are. And that's what Mark is feeding off of. He's going to feel insecure that you spent that much time in a relationship with someone and you still speak incredibly highly of them and remain in contact. If the roles were reversed, how would you feel? OP says, if roles were reversed, I'd be fine with it. I think the attitude that a lot of people have toward their ex is weird. Presumably, you dated them because you liked something about them, but then you found out it wasn't going to work long term. As long as the breakup is amicable, why wouldn't you want to remain friends? I don't understand why we're supposed to cut people out if we're not romantically compatible. Also, if someone played an important role in your life and brought good things into your life, I see absolutely no problem with acknowledging that. I don't get why it's more acceptable to hate your ex or speak badly about them than it is to acknowledge that they are a good person, but it just didn't work out. Commenter 1 says, I also want to add that I think Mark's unloving comment is ridiculous. That's a part of your life before Mark ever came into it, and he can't take that from you or alter it. And it is okay that you still love Eli in some way. Mark probably doesn't wrap his head around that because you are his first love. Commenter 2 says, you can have positive feelings for an ex and remain on friendly terms, but talking to them weekly is a bit much. I get that it's sparingly, but if the situation were reversed, would you be comfortable if he texted his ex every week? The demand to unlove your ex, however, is ridiculous. We all have pasts. You've already explained your feelings as platonic, and he's taking it to the extreme. If you want to save your current relationship, stop texting this ex weekly and see if that helps. If he won't let go of his argument, it might be time to find someone who's less insecure. OP says, I do understand what you're saying. However, just as a side note, Mark works on a 2-person team with his ex and sees her every day in office. They're not necessarily friends, but they have a friendly relationship. It's never bothered me. So I do think it's fair to say I would not care if the situation were reversed. Maybe this is just an incompatibility. OP later adds an edit to her post. Just for context, since people are hung up on the 10 texts a week, Mark and I easily exchange 50 to 100 texts a day, and we see each other multiple times a week. So I consider 10 texts to be a brief conversation. It's a very surface level, how are you, how's work type thing. It's not in-depth. Update 1 month later. Trigger warning. There is physical violence in this update. Figured I'd update my post from about a month ago. Unfortunately, there wasn't a happy ending, but I'm very grateful for a lot of the advice I've received here. Thank you, Reddit, for helping me keep my head on straight. After I made my first post, I read all the comments and thought about everything for a few days. A lot of people mentioned that they would not be comfortable with the frequency of my communication with my ex. I thought that was very fair. People also mentioned that Mark's behavior was pretty controlling and not okay. I also thought that was fair. I went to talk to Mark and told him that I understood if he was uncomfortable with me being in touch with Eli weekly, and that I would be totally willing to cut that down. I also reiterated again that I was not currently in love with Eli and hadn't been for a while. Mark was understanding this time and seemed happy with the fact that I offered to cut down my contact with Eli. But then I told Mark that although I was willing to do this, I wasn't happy with how he approached the issue and that I found his behavior controlling. I basically told him that I want him to approach issues in a more rational way, and I would appreciate it if he opened a dialogue rather than just telling me what to do, and that I wouldn't put up with him trying to command me to do something, especially something so ridiculous. I said everything in the same tone as I used for the first half of the conversation. I wasn't yelling at him or admonishing him, just trying to let him know where my boundaries are. You guys, Mark flew off the handle. He started screaming at me. I obviously wasn't having it, so I got up to leave. He started throwing dishes and random kitchen items at me, and grabbed me and slammed my head into the door jamb. I ended up with a nasty black eye and a busted lip. Luckily for me, a neighbor heard the commotion and called the cops. Mark was arrested, and I was taken to the hospital. Yes, I'm pressing charges and filed for a restraining order. Overall, it was a horrible incident, but I'm glad this happened earlier in the relationship rather than later, and I am forever grateful for the neighbor who called the cops. I'm also grateful to most of you guys for telling me that I wasn't being insane in my first post and for pointing out the early warning signs. It wasn't the best ending, but I'm okay, and I'm just glad it's over. Take this as a cautionary tale, I guess. ScalingStories Corner. Okay, wow, just wow. I know reading the original post, I thought Mark was in the wrong and I kind of didn't like him, but wow, I just didn't think it was going to escalate like that. Like OP telling him that she didn't like how he was talking to her really shattered his ego or something. And I guess he had the emotional control of a toddler or something even worse, because that was just 0 to 100 in just like a millisecond. I don't even know how you're supposed to avoid a situation like that. Like you go into it thinking you're going to talk to someone you like or love. And I think OP was with this guy for like 6 or 8 months or something like that. So you're expecting a possible conversation, right? Especially if there wasn't any physical violence before this. And it just escalated so quickly. And that's really scary. Is that just unlucky for OP, or is she supposed to like break up with him over text, or I don't even know, because it wasn't even screaming at me that like OP had to break up with him like ASAP from the original post. It was just like, okay, this guy's sort of delulu in his thought process. I thought a conversation could at least be viable, but I guess in this situation it wasn't. And I was also kind of surprised, I guess, for the texting thing. I thought texting someone like once a week, 4 times a month, it was like not really a large amount of texting to do with someone, and definitely wouldn't make it like you really care about this person. But maybe because it's the fact that it's an ex makes it like worse, or like makes it really bad. I'm not really sure. So maybe that is like a deal breaker in some situations. It just didn't really feel like that much to me. Now, here are some of the top/relevant comments from the update post. Commenter 1 says, "Him, would a controlling psycho do this? Him, smashes dishes and your head. All of us. Yes? I'm really glad you got out of there. I hope you heal quickly." OP says, "This made me chuckle. Thank you, smiley face." Commenter 2 says, "People sometimes thinks this sub is overreacting when we say that someone is an abuser before physical harm has been done. But this update is proof that the line between crappy, controlling behavior and physical violence is wafer thin. OP, I'm so glad you were able to get out before they got even worse. Look after yourself and your mental health. Your injuries will heal, but it's okay if it takes some time to process what happened." Commenter 3 says, "Oh no, that's so awful. Please, please, please don't let him talk you out of pressing charges and/or testifying in court. It's actually really common for abusive partners to, seemingly, do a 180 after an assault. Suddenly, they're all loving sweetness. They put on a huge show of contrition and convince the women to help them get out of legal trouble. Then, once they're safe, they drop the act." OP says, "Oh, believe me, I will absolutely not be in contact with him ever again, and I will absolutely be testifying against him." OP later adds an edit to her post. "I've gotten a lot of concerned messages, which I appreciate, telling me to watch out for Mark now, and that abusers are often at their most dangerous right after a breakup. Just to ease everyone's mind, I'm staying with a classmate, who Mark does not know, for the time being, so I'm well protected. Thanks, everyone." Okay, friends, so that concludes today's video. Leave a like and comment down below to let me know what you thought of it, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.